Welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel Podcast with Jimmy and Dino.
And sometimes Jared.
Down the Barrel Podcast is brought to you by the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association
and wolf.report.
Dead Nuts Outdoors, creators of the most realistic 2D archery targets on the market. Practice how you hunt. Hit it dead nuts. Visit deadnutsoutdoors.com to gear up.
All right. Today we are sitting down with everybody's favorite wolf biologist.
And comedian.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe Minnesota's most hated figure at this point. Mr. Tom Gable.
Probably pretty close. But he's one of our favorites.
That's true.
Well, that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So,
Tom Gable. What do you do for a living, Tom Gable?
I just write articles and things like that.
Write some satire.
No affiliation with the
That's
Voyageurs
right.
Wolf Project.
That's right.
VWP's in the house.
No, yeah, I lead the Voyageurs Wolf Project. So we study wolves up in northern Minnesota, and pretty controversial species.
Lately-
obviously,
lately it has
and
been.
probably for forever. But
Well,
Yeah.
that's just the way of the world.
that's the
right
way
now.
it goes. So otherwise, aside from that, it's actually a pretty fun job.
Absolutely.
We enjoyed the last podcast we had with you.
Yeah.
And just
I think that was,
After-
our first, that was like
wasn't it?
last fall, wasn't it?
I think it was like our third episode ever.
I think so.
I think it was last spring. Well,
It was
a year
spring.
and
The
a half
spring.
ago almost.
Was it in the
I think.
spring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since we talked to you.
Yep.
So I'm guessing by this time the wolves have quadrupled, and we probably have 3-4 million.
Well, actually, I recently read on social media they killed the last deer,
Oh.
and now the population is just
drop
yes.
time.
on a
What was that?
catastrophic decline.
As predicted for
Right.
the past 150 years, to be exact.
Yeah.
Wolves have finally killed off the last white-tailed deer in our area. And that
Hey.
was good old
That's just not funny.
drop time.
You're hurting my feelings.
Right.
Learn how to take a joke.
Dare you?
I know.
Yes, you did this post about old drop time.
Mhm.
Obviously, a satirical post about wolves killing off the last deer in your research area,
Yep.
which is something that I think we all hear a lot. Is that is inevitable, and you got some hate for it.
Mhm.
Yep. And that's nothing new, I would say.
Right.
So certainly some people think certain things are more humorous than others. And I think with our social media, we share a lot of things that probably we think is either humorous, interesting, stuff that other people might not want to share because it's going to cause controversy or people are going to get upset at them and things like that. And generally, we've just tried to share stuff that we think is, like I said, interesting, and sometimes certain pieces of content, some things that are satirical, which we think are obviously all in good fun, but some people don't take it that way. But, that's just the way things go. And
Right.
we just keep moving on. So, and like we mentioned, we think life would be a lot better if people could learn to lighten up a little bit and be able to laugh at themselves. I mean, we certainly have many people make jokes at us, and some of them, even though they're not true, we can still chuckle at them at the characterization of our project and the work we do. And that's just life, and we move on. So I think some people just take things to heart a little more than is needed.
Then they should be.
I think
Absolutely.
they read every word on social media or whatever they see on the internet, and it's gospel or it's true. The internet don't lie.
No.
That's right.
Everything on Facebook is real.
100% real.
100%. I mean, you're a scientific, project. How can you be funny?
No,
Well, that's
funny
it. We
enough.
should not stick to. We had some people.
Numbers
should
only.
Never go to comic. Just stick with science. And
Right,
that's
right.
all we should be. God forbid you're actually a person.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have a little personality.
according to science,
Mhm.
and maybe I'll refer to your science as, because what we've heard is wolves chase deer 28 hours a day, 382 days a year.
Nonstop.
That's
Nonstop.
what I've heard.
Mhm.
They never sleep
Yeah,
ever.
ever.
Mm-mm.
So
They don't have
And
to.
they
as
They
long
don't
as they're
really
in
die
phones.
either.
And they have longer days than us, apparently.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. And they never die. They don't die of old age. They don't just get,
That's why they eat those baby fawns, because if you eat baby fawns, you don't ever die.
True. That's the
The growth
immortality,
hormones,
right?
basically.
Yeah.
Or the
I'm sure
fountain
Tom
youth.
could explain the science behind that.
Well,
I
it's-
would
it's
appreciate it.
factual. I heard that from my dumbest middle school friend on Facebook.
Well, yeah, that is totally true. So anyway, yeah. So you got a lot of hate for the old drop tine post. I read it and I laughed. I thought, I mean, I knew you were funny. I mean, I know you like to post some humor. So
Yeah.
I mean,
we all laughed, and
We did.
We are the leading organization in the state of
Right.
Minnesota advocating for a wolf hunt.
Right.
And we still found humor in it.
Right.
I was amazed at how many dumb people didn't find humor in it.
Well, I think the one challenge that is probably a fair one is there are a lot of people who follow our project that do not live in wolf range.
Mhm.
And so some of it is, there is a cultural aspect to it, right? Whereas like we're in northern Minnesota, we hear people say stuff like that a lot, right?
Right.
And so you can kind of get why that's humorous, right? So if you live in it, it's funny. If you're from Australia and you're following the project, you're probably not going to understand why that would be humorous because you've never lived in that environment. So there's some of that I can see as understandable. And then I think, there's a lot of other people who I think it's also social media. They don't read it very closely. They skim it and then they comment before they even let it process or think through it. And that happens. We've had people in particular that it was, a hate piece on hunters, and it really, exposed our disdain that we've harbored all along for these
right back at you, Tom.
And
Disdain.
and I think it's somewhat humorous because these people who feel that way, it was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we had a couple of posts where we had these wolves that we were studying that got hit by vehicles in our area. And there's these 2 wolves that got hit a couple months apart within a mile stretch of one another on Highway 53. So we shared that line, and all of a sudden, some wolf advocates in particular started getting concerned that there were locals who were specifically targeting wolves at this stretch of highway, right? And coming and mowing them down with their vehicles, right? It's kind of funny, right? And so we made a satirical post of how there were locals feeding these wolves and then coming down with their trucks decked out to like mow down the wolves, right?
It's like Mad Max vehicles.
And exactly, right? Because it's humorous, right? When you think about it, it's like no one is doing that, right? So we made that post, and I guess predictably, we also got some of those people who just didn't think that was funny. You shouldn't joke about that.
Right.
And so we had people are upset at us saying we dislike the hunters. Like, well, we've done the same thing on the other side too. Like, we just think it's somewhat humorous. Like, and we can all laugh a little and be like, okay, I think that idea is a little silly, and move on instead of trying to turn it into something bigger than it was intended to be. So,
and I fully believe if you care about an issue a lot, I mean, like obviously, Tom, you do. If you can't joke about it, you do not love that issue. I'm sorry. You have to be able to love it to joke about it.
And I think some levity. I mean, obviously, studying wolves, we deal with a lot of people who are angry and serious on both sides of the equation. Oftentimes, everything here about wolves is some conflict or controversy or whatever, right? So there's a little bit of I think there's something healthy about a little bit of humor to be able to look at this situation and be like, okay, yeah, maybe this is like some levity, right? That brings it back down to earth and like maybe reminds us like this is maybe an important issue, but in the whole scheme of things, like, is this like the apocalypse? And it's like, not really. Like, it's an issue we can joke about, we can laugh about, even though people have strong feelings. And that's kind of how we approach stuff with our work. And like I said, there's plenty of people who have lots to say about our work on the internet. And, we see it all the time and just kind of chuckle at some of it's pretty clever. Like there's people who've had some pretty clever stuff about us, and that's what it is. Wolves only eat berries and beavers, things like that. Right. You just see it and kind of chuckle and okay, that's life, move on. So
absolutely. So, after the humor, what has been going on with VWB? What's going on right now this time of year?
So right now we've got people, probably as we're speaking, in the field searching clusters of GPS locations from collared wolves to determine what they're doing in terms of their predation behavior or other foraging behavior. Where are they getting other food sources? We have folks today out checking trail cameras as well, visiting abandoned den and rendezvous sites where wolves are raising their pups. We always document those sites and have for basically since we started. So we're doing a lot of the same work that we've been doing for now 11 years, and we're basically just doing it year in, year out the same way. I hopefully identify patterns through time as environmental conditions change year to year, population patterns change, prey populations change, and to understand hopefully long term why we see these patterns and why we see these changes through time. And that only happens by doing the same work systematically all the time. So that's what we're doing in the field. Outside of the field right now, myself and a couple of other biologists are spending most of our days going through trail camera footage from this winter. We're working on our pack and population estimates right now. And so we have, our estimate is like, I think about 11 continuous days of footage that we have to review from this winter. And so we go through that footage video by video, and that's of wildlife. So we've already deleted out all the stuff of snowmobiles, ATVs, people, right? Blowing vegetation. That's just animal footage that we've got to go looking through. And then we're going through to look for video footage of wolves together, 2 or more wolves, which are a pack, and trying to get estimates for all the 22 to 24 packs in our area. And so we just review all this footage, and we're not only trying to count the number of individuals, but actually identify them based on their physical characteristics. We're able to determine, okay, these are the breeding pair because we can tell what they look like. We know how many pups are in each of these packs. We know how many of them are subordinate adults, so they're not a breeder, but they're also not a pup. And so that gives us lots of good information on basically reproductive success of wolves in this given year. Gives us idea of pack dynamics, pack structure, how that changes through time. So we've been doing that for about the past week and a half. We probably have another week and a half or so left to do that. So it's a pretty time-consuming process, but it gives us really, really good information on wolves in our area. So I mean, it's not. It isn't. It's always an estimate, but it's about as close as you can get to a true count of the number of wolves as you possibly could, because we can physically say, we saw this pack 45 times this winter, which is basically once every 3 days on a camera somewhere. Okay. And this is how many wolves were there. And these were the wolves that were present. So we're going to get through that. And then using that data and using our GPS location data, we can then come up with a population density estimate. And then we'll write our population report, which is usually a pretty long document that we make publicly available on our website. And that'll probably be out August or September, depending how long it takes us to kind of finish up this part of the data analysis.
So is that data that you get from that, is that how you create those really cool maps of the wolf packs? Yep,
absolutely. Yep. So we have a combination of those wolf pack territory maps.
Right.
About half of those territories come from GPS collar data. Okay. And then the others, we've got all these cameras around, and we're able to kind of, using that data, say, okay, we got these wolves on these cameras. We didn't get them on these cameras. And so we can pretty much know where these territories are by and large, based on the trail camera data and historical territories. So there's a lot of geographical features, rivers, highways that provide these kind of consistent edges of territories. And so we're able to kind of estimate that. But yeah, so those are kind of and so we'll have a new map this year.
I was going to ask you, is there going to be an updated map?
Yep. And so every population report that we do every year, we put an updated map that shows that.
We need one of those maps for the entire northern part of the state. Well, I'd like you to create that if you could.
Yeah.
If you could, it would actually be a super amazing if you somehow, which of course would never happen, but if you could get like the GPS collars in all the pack territories in Minnesota and make that mosaic, I mean, that would be really something to see. Yeah. But obviously it's really intensive work. So people ask, well, why doesn't the DNR do that? And it's like, well, we have 22 or 25 packs, right? And we've got a pretty large team working on this year round to get this data. The DNR, there's 500, 600 packs or something they estimate. So I mean, that's an incredible amount of work. It's just not practical, on that scale. So you have to do things a bit differently.
Yeah. And there's only one Dan Stark.
Yep. I mean, there's just not, they don't have the capacity.
The large carnivore specialist.
Oh, Dan. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, there's only one Dan.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a lot of, how many trail cams you guys have? I was trying to remember.
So we have out at any given time more than 350 out. So, and sometimes it's closer to 400. It just kind of depends. A lot of how we do it is, we have a lot of cameras that are out year round, kind of in consistent places. But then there's certain packs, and it depends on which social group is occupying a territory. Sometimes we'll get a ton of footage of a pack because they keep using these similar travel routes. And then sometimes it's very little. And so then we have to be like, okay, we got to get more cameras out in different spots because they're not using these.
Right.
And so we'll sometimes put more out. So I always have some in the reserve. We have, and then they're Browning trail cameras. So they have a shelf life. And after a while, they start going bad. So I always have plenty to kind of then go replace them and things like that. Yeah. So, but it's a lot of cameras. And our study areas, almost 1,000 square miles. So, I mean, it's a huge area that we're covering.
He did it.
But he did.
He used miles.
He did. Last time he was using clock.
I'm getting better at it because I know people are like, I don't know.
God bless you, Tom.
Right?
So to continue with the feeding the misinformation train.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How many of my taxpayer dollars are going to just buy your batteries for your trail cameras?
Yeah, that's kind
All of them.
Your battery budget must be insane.
It's funny as we're told we're taxpayer funded, which would be fantastic if we had that kind of guaranteed budget. But we don't get any taxpayer funds. We get no support from the Minnesota DNR, none from the National Park Service. So no state or federal agencies are funding our project. Over half of our budget probably comes from donors now, and so that's been increasing every year. And then we get a good portion of our funding from the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, which is obviously lottery proceeds.
Right.
Some want to say that's tax dollars. I guess I
It's
don't
lottery
really. No one's
dollars. It's
forcing you to
gambling
buy
money.
It's
Right.
not
It's
forcing you to
gambling.
buy. No one's forcing you to buy lottery tickets. You do have to pay taxes. So we don't get. So a lot of our support comes from donors, people who want to follow our project from all sorts of places. I mean, we've got over 8,100 donors, and they're, I'm sure, run the gamut of both political affiliations and perspectives on
right.
wolves and things like that, which is totally fine. We have if anyone wants to support, rigorous wolf research, like, we're happy to have their support, regardless of whether or not they want to hunt wolves, don't hunt wolves, whatever.
Right.
So, and I know we have people in places where, let's say, wolf hunting is not as controversial as it is in places like Minnesota, follows from Canada and things like that. And they're like, I'm a wolf hunter, I'm a trapper, think your work's really cool, sent in a donation or something. It's like,
Yeah, I think
cool.
that's how. I mean, that's
great.
how I feel personally too. I think
100%.
even as somebody that thinks that we should have wolf management, I think your work is extremely valuable to understand wolves.
Yeah. How do you manage a species if you don't
understand
the
it?
species?
So, I mean, that's why I look at it.
And I donate every year.
Absolutely.
Last few
Appreciate
years,
it.
I
Absolutely.
guess I should say.
Mhm.
It's been the last few years I've donated. And
This podcast is donated.
this
right?
podcast just recently donated a month ago.
Right.
It was after the old drop time. I was like, yep.
I think it was like $1 million.
I did not approve.
oh, that's where that came from.
Yeah. But, I did get my sticker, Tom.
Tom.
Well, we don't send them to hunters.
That's what it was.
Well, you could barely call Dean a hunter. Let's be real here.
Well, so I appreciate you responding to my planted misinformation about the taxpayer dollars, but you very skillfully dodged answering my question.
Which was that?
What is your battery line item in your budget?
Oh, how much does it cost? Oh, gosh.
I mean,
It used to be, so I'd say the biggest change we've had, so it probably was 20 grand.
Jeez.
25 grand.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it
I
this way. It's, 8 lithium batteries per camera. You have 350 cameras. Lithium batteries, especially during the pandemic, they've actually come down a little bit recently, but they were up to like $250 a battery, know, so it depends how many times you have to, in the summertime, you're swapping batteries a lot because there's blowing veg and stuff like that. So it adds up pretty quickly. Winter's a little better. We recently last year purchased, because we've been trying to get away from using like single-use lithium batteries because it just feels wasteful in some sense, and it's just a never-ending cost, right? That you can't get away from. So we're using rechargeable lithium batteries.
Right.
I'm sure you guys might have heard of the website trailcampro.com.
Yeah.
If you haven't, it's worth checking out. It's mainly for all stuff trail cameras, and they try out all sorts of camera technology, and they found these rechargeable batteries that are made in China, and they said they were really great and recommended them. So we actually we tried some out. They seem to work pretty well. And so we bought those, and they're expensive, $5 a battery, but it doesn't take too long to do the math and be like, well, if they work, they pay for themselves in about 6-8 months. So our budget is a little lower, but we're not convinced they're going to work in the winter entirely when it gets really cold. So we still we think we can get through the summer, and summer's our worst time because there's so much vegetation. We're constantly swapping batteries. The winter, we'll probably still have to buy a good chunk of lithium batteries, if nothing else, just to have them on hand in case there's a catastrophe and we find out these other batteries aren't going to work. And then there's other spots where the rechargeables work for a couple of months, but you don't want to leave them out there for like 6 months because they probably aren't going to last.
Right.
They don't have the capacity that typical one lithium does.
Yeah.
So we are still going to have to buy stuff for remote cameras. So it's still a lot. I mean, cameras are still very expensive, but as a whole, as a population monitoring tool, it's still way cheaper than you could look at like traditional ways of estimating wolves in like places like Minnesota, where you're flying multiple times a winter trying to get aerial observations, and you're maybe getting an observation 2, maybe 3 of a pack all winter long, and paying whatever that is per hour, $400 an hour, something like that, and getting subpar data. Whereas ours, it's expensive, but we have certainty, and we have the physical footage that we can then use to corroborate our estimates as well. So there's definitely we like that rigor to the method, even though it is not cheap to do.
Right. And you said you used Brownie cameras. Is there a reason for that?
So when we first started, we wanted HD cameras, cameras that took really good HD footage. And we contacted Trail Cam Pro, and I said, what's the best camera on the market? And there's some that are, say, they're 4K cameras. And they basically said, like, those cameras say they're 4K, but they're really not, essentially. They said, don't get those. So they said, try this Browning Spec Ops. At that time, it was the Spec Ops Advantage.
Okay.
That has then had several models. It's the Spec Ops Elite HP5 right now. We started using those, and we really like them because they take really high-quality footage. They're relatively affordable, and they've got a really good trigger. It's very sensitive, which some people won't like because you're going to get a lot more blow and stuff. We like that from the research side, because then you feel a lot more confident you're not missing animals, right? Some cameras are less sensitive, but you're always, we used to use Reconyx, for instance, which were like the camera, right? And they were pretty good.
They were, yeah.
But there were times where we would see a wolf go by, and then it'd be a little delay, and then another one would go by, but then you could definitely tell something had walked in between them that you didn't get on camera for some reason, right? We don't see that with Browning so much. And the trigger is really, it reaches out a long ways. Like, we'll get animals crossing beaver dams, like a bear or a wolf, and it starts triggering way back where that that bear or wolf is a long ways away.
Wow.
So we really like that. So we've been really happy with those cameras, and basically have stuck with them because they've continued to work. And to our knowledge, there's been nothing on the market that has really surpassed them in terms of affordability.
They need to give you money. They need to give you money.
Well, we've been working on it. We're supposedly...
You heard that commercial, bud? You need to.
Well, I mean, that's what we actually. So we've got a sponsorship sort of in the works right now with Brownings. We're in a discussion.
They should,
and in part because we use them all the time. We get asked probably at least a couple times a week, what cameras do you use?
I just did.
So we told them, like, this would be a good. Good for you if you help us out. We can.
Hey, Browning, I'm going to check you out now. I wouldn't have otherwise, but I'm going to check you out now.
Yep.
And obviously, cell cams would be just way too expensive because of the plans and everything.
Right. Unless
we don't have good service in a lot of it.
Right.
So there, and especially with the HD footage, I mean, those are 64 megabyte files every 20-second video, right? So you've got to sending that over a cellular network would be just crazy expensive.
So what size SD card do you throw in those things? Every one of those cameras?
64 gigabytes.
Really?
Because that's what a set of lithium batteries can take, about 1,000 20-second HD videos, which is about precisely what you can fit on a 64 gigabyte card.
Wow, you have done the math.
So we just kind of like, it works out nicely.
Yeah.
And that's about 3 hours of footage that those cards can hold. So, and then we've got lots of extra ones, and then we're just constantly swapping.
So, a while back, you said you had about, what was it? 11 days worth of footage to go through?
Yep.
How many cards is that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, so we swap cards for all of our cameras twice a year at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then if a card has more than like 500-ish videos on it, we usually swap it preemptively. So usually we swap them in the spring and the fall. Those are 2 periods. Because otherwise, if you're swapping them every time you check them, we probably check them every month and a half.
Okay.
You don't want to swap them every time, because then you're dealing with 350 cards every month. You've got to download the footage and things like that. But sometimes they fill up on other stuff, so we have to. So, I mean, in a winter, we're probably going through 1,000 SD cards of footage, as throughout the winter, in terms of swapping, because we also on snowmobile trails. So you can imagine putting a camera on a snowmobile trail, that's going to be filling up in 2 weeks, right? And then you got to swap it. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And we also have to go through, I mean, when we get 1,000 videos, we have to have people on our team that go through all of that to delete the stuff that isn't wildlife. So that takes time. So it's a huge investment of time to do that.
Sure.
Wow.
But we've just felt like it's super valuable in terms of, because the data we get, we're seeing wolves in a way that people in Minnesota really haven't had a chance to see and observe them. I mean, we obviously can't see them in person, but that footage gives us insights that we would never get otherwise,
Right.
because you're seeing these animals snippets. It's like a puzzle, right? You're getting little bits here, there,
Right.
and then you can all of a sudden piece it all together with enough footage
Right.
and make sense of it.
Yeah, one thing I like. Sorry, Dino, I'm going to cut you
go
off
ahead.
one more time.
Imagine that.
But what with that
He's what we
11?
call her subordinate adult.
Oh, okay, subordinate adult.
That was the term you used, right?
It was.
I'm sorry, I'll give you a second here. I just want to ask on that same subject.
Yep.
11 days of footage. I mean, they're going through it right now, your crew. So we can probably expect to see some good videos, not just of wolves, but we probably have moose on there, bobcats, all kinds of stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And that's in the. I mean, that's one of the side benefits of it,
Right.
right? Is that we
Yeah.
get all sorts of other stuff. I mean, our main goal when we're putting out cameras is to get wolves, right? But
Right.
places that wolves like to use are what lynx like to use, and moose and other animals too.
Mhm.
So we do have some really cool stuff we've captured this winter, and we're still going through it. So I do all of our social media stuff, and I have to try to get through. We'll partition up for our research different people to go through different chunks of footage, but for our social media, I go through, try to watch every video
Okay.
to find the best stuff so that we can share it. And then it's always the challenge of just like what stuff is worth sharing. And I've got a long list, and it's kind of like, what are people going to like? Because sometimes what's strange is I'll watch footage and I'll think, wow, that's a really cool video. And I'll put it online, and it's kind of like, meh, people don't care much. And then I'll put one like, this is kind of a meh video.
Yeah.
And people are like, loved it. That was one of your best videos ever. And I'm like, really? That to me didn't seem so good. So we do get a lot of nice stuff, which helps us.
Well, people like to see that online.
Yeah, it's a perk of of what we're doing. It's sort of a
right.
byproduct of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say is like on top of the battery budget. I mean, if you're watching 11 days of videos, the Cheetos and energy drinks have got to be a pretty big part of it too. Because I can imagine scrolling through
Come
click
on.
by click.
Energy drinks, scotch.
Oh,
Well, I was going to say it's kind of coffee in the morning, scotch in the afternoon.
right.
I suppose it is an all-day process.
The
Cheetos,
data just
pretzels.
gets better the more scotch you've had. So.
When was the last time you watched a video that was not captured on one of your trail cameras?
Is that date night?
Tom gets done with work, and the last thing he wants to do is turn on Netflix.
I mean, there are days where like you're looking at it because not only are you watching it, but then we're recording information, right? So you're doing data entry. So you're watching. It's kind of like the equivalent of, if I could make a sports analogy, like watching film for like football or something, right? You're watching it over and over, trying to catch subtleties, nuance things. Because if you just watch, you're like, oh, 4 wolves, 5 wolves, right? And you're like, no big deal. But what we're looking for is like, okay, who are these wolves? What can I identify? How can we permanently know that this wolf is that wolf? And so we're looking for things like, oh, it's got a scar on its leg, it's got something on its muzzle, right? So no matter where that wolf ends up in our study area, we could probably identify it. So we're doing it with a really fine tooth comb.
Okay.
And so that requires a lot more time than just watching it. Right? As you might be watching videos numerous times and watching, and then cross-referencing of like, okay, I think I saw this wolf at this other camera here.
So
I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to look at it and see if it's the same. And we have a different system to remember which unique wolves we've identified and where. And so then through the years, we have a whole database of like individual unique wolves that we've identified via our trail cameras and things like that.
So hopefully in a short amount of time, within the next couple years, AI would be able to help you a little bit more.
It would be nice. The challenges right now with a lot of wildlife research, they have AI figured out for photos, for still photos, in terms of, in particular, for identifying species, right? That they've gotten that pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
The video side of things has not gotten there, at least for wildlife stuff. I'm sure that technology exists out there, but it's not been sort of set up specifically for like the kind of research footage we have. I bet it will get there at some point. I'll admit I'm not particularly AI literate, so it even might exist out there now. I'm not aware of other researchers doing it because we get a lot of folks asking us, how do you get through all your footage like other researchers? And I'm like, we're just trying our best, to stay up with it. Because everyone's in the same spot where they're inundated with footage, right? Getting the footage is the easy part. Then how you process all that is the challenge, right? And I wouldn't say we've mastered that. We've got a system for now, but it always feels like, oh my gosh, this is a ton to get through.
Right. I can't imagine.
Facial recognition for wolves. I'm thinking what you do with those Browning cameras, you just like glitter on them. Then those glitter patterns are going to be different for every wolf. Okay?
Or just a paintball gun, you just shoot them.
Genius.
Yeah.
You would go to glitter.
Hey, I'm just saying, it seems affordable.
So speaking of identifying individual wolves, you had another post recently that was a little controversial about the 2 pups and their mom that died in the den.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you sit around and let that poor, helpless little wolf pup die?
It is surprising as
Are you not God?
Well, it's surprising as a wolf advocacy group like ourselves that we wouldn't go save that wolf,
right?
Because that's what our job is, apparently, is to save all the wolves. But I mean, yeah, it's the sort of, we see this kind of stuff all the time, right? About people wanting us to go help every injured wolf or wolf that's in distress or that's dying, and people don't like the fact that. And we're not going to hide behind it. I mean, we just don't do that, and we're not going to do that. And that makes some people angry, and that's what it is,
Wouldn't it technically be illegal for you to go do that?
Oh, I mean, we would need permits. I mean, no doubt, but we're not even going to pursue that, so to speak.
Right.
It's kind of like, and at that point, it seems easy. Just go save this wolf pup and put it in captivity. I don't think people have really thought about those things all the way through. Wolf pups go through a fear period when they're very young, meaning that they're not going to get used to people well. By the time that pup, by the time we got there, was 4 weeks old almost. Mm-hmm. And so usually when people take orphan pups, they're really, really young, and they put them in captivity, and they can socialize to humans and maybe get used to that because they haven't developed a fear of humans quite yet. But when you have a 1 month old pup, I mean, you put that in captivity, I don't think that pup is going to just be like, oh, wow, this is so much better than what I was in. It's going to be stressed out. It's going to be a very unpleasant experience, probably. It might live, right? And so some people would say, oh, well, it lived. That's better than it dying. That's, I guess, a real value statement, or at least judgment call. For us, we study wolves the way things just are, right? And and this, as far as we're aware, these were totally natural, normal circumstances. The pup's mother died. I'm sure that happens frequently. Maybe not frequently, but it happens, I'm sure. And that pup is left to die, or its pack members take care of it and it lives. And in this instance, that we do know that pup was getting provisioned by other adults to an extent. We don't know how much. And then it died, or we suspect it died. And that's just nature. That's the way the natural world works. And people, that I think offends some people's sensibilities, that's the way nature works. And we're certainly not going to apologize for kind of just studying it and reporting what happens.
Right, that's literally your job.
That's our job. And frankly, I think, you can't learn about the way it works if you're trying to always prevent all the, let's say, unpleasantness of it, because there's unpleasantness all the time in the natural world, stuff that is not nice to think about. And if you're just trying to prevent that, you're never going to learn anything meaningful. And ultimately, those sort of things there are valuable population level aspects to, let's say, high mortality rates of things like deer fawns, wolf pups, right? These populations have adapted these sort of reproductive strategies so that their populations can adjust to changes in conditions, food availability, things like that. So if you start all of a sudden trying to mess with those things, you're changing the way that these things have adapted and evolved for a very long time. And I think people don't realize, there's a reason why most deer fawns don't live. There's a reason why most wolf pups in our area don't live. And there's a reason also why they still have more, deer and wolves have more offspring than are going to survive. And that is a reproductive strategy, because when times are good, they have the potential to increase really quickly and at high volumes, right? But in typical years, that's probably not going to happen. But the capacity is there should they encounter favorable conditions. So if you try to change that, you're sort of monkeying with that long, important evolutionary process that's at play with these populations. I think some people don't see it quite that way.
Right.
But that's certainly how we think about it.
I just don't think some people think.
Well, I think that's pretty evident on social media.
Right.
One doesn't have to, you can get outside of wolves and deer, just look at social media as a whole.
Yeah, it's even the same people that, when wolves are killing and eating deer, it's like, I can't believe that happened. God forbid a wolf eats a deer.
I know.
You can still make it while we're going here.
I don't know.
I don't know why you guys hate hunters.
Well, what's funny is we, a couple days later, so we had, we shared because we get asked all the time about, what's your take on wolf hunting and all this. So we shared that a couple days later. And predictably, it's really interesting. Our social media response is really variable depending on the platform. So like we share the things about old drop tying on Facebook or on Instagram, and we really got no unpleasant comments, right? Facebook is where we got all the unpleasant people. And then we shared this one about hunting and trapping. And on social media, on Facebook, we had the typical thing, but generally most people were happy that we really weren't wading into the values on it. On Instagram, people just lost their minds, mainly from the, animal rights, wolf advocacy side of things. And so, then, we supposoly lost a lot of supporters that day from those people.
The ones that say it,
which I'm not really that concerned about, but those are the sorts. So it's really interesting. We, in a week's time, we figured out how to make both sides really angry.
Right. I think that should be your next study project, actually.
Exactly.
The Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, and see. I want to know that data.
It's really interesting.
They're their own tribes, I think.
They're their own tribes, and certainly I think different demographics that you're reaching. Yes. And I think that you see that come out in the way people respond to things.
Absolutely.
That's my favorite, though. Is when we get those comments that are like, I'm canceling my membership and I'll never be a member.
We always look you up.
And then I go, hey, Heidi, can you look up this person? There's no record of you ever being a member.
You were never
donated.
You'll never get my
I guess
money.
that's a net nothing.
Right.
I think that's exactly what we don't want to be, is someone saying, well, we're going to try to use money to get you to share our opinions. It's like, no. That's like, we don't do that, and we're not interested in doing that. And I would rather our project just end before we start trying to find, to every whim of someone who's upset about what we say.
Oh, there's always somebody to be upset.
Yeah, it's always going to be that way, right? And it's just, we're not doing that.
Well, I had to laugh the other day because I have not found it in me yet to be as bold with my responses as you were the other day. Because somebody said like just that, like I used to follow this project, but after, I think you missed after you let the wolf pup die or whatever, like, I'm done, goodbye. And your account responded and it just said goodbye.
I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you really have to, because what are you going to do? What can you say at that point? Like,
no, please don't
I'm
go.
so sorry, but because you're not.
Save another wolf.
Well, I think that's exactly, that's been my strategy with it, is like, we want to find that balance, and it's obviously hard. I mean, there's some times where you want to say things like, no, that's not a good response, right? But there's a certain parts like, we're not going to, like sometimes I see other accounts, let's say, where people, I'll take the Minnesota DNR, for instance, like they'll share something on their thing about wolves, and then it just becomes a bloodbath on social media, right? Mm-hmm. And they have kind of a stock response of it just doesn't go well, right? It just kind of becomes, everyone just piles on. And I want to be like, if you're going to come on our page and insult us, like we're going to respond, and we're not going to try to embarrass you, but we're certainly not going to just sit there and like take it. We're going to respond in a respectful way and basically like, we think that's total nonsense. Mm-hmm. And so I think as time's gone on, I've become more comfortable of like, we've already kind of made the enemies we've made. Yeah. And I think some people appreciate it, at least like I appreciate it when I look at other people's pages. You don't give into the social media mob, right? That just like, cause it's always there. Right. And if we did something actually wrong, I guess that's a different thing, right? But when you're like, we've done nothing wrong here, you might have a difference of opinion, but that doesn't mean, whatever awful things you're saying are legitimate.
Right.
And so we've just, gotten a little bit bolder with it as we've and gotten comfortable finding that line and still trying to be respectful. I mean, we've tried, I'm sure there's somewhere I'm like, I should have maybe phrased that differently, but trying to still be like courteous, but firm of like, in our response. And
I know you're a lot more respectful than I would be.
I know. Like I think on this channel, DTB, we are most certainly, we try to do the same thing, but we don't want to. We want to be disrespectful if we can.
Right. We would honestly, we're kind of hoping somebody would push us over that limit.
Right. Because we want to say really bad things.
We were at the very beginning. We had one gentleman.
I've done it a few times.
He made some comment and, we attacked him, and then he didn't like it, so then we just booted him. It's like, you know what? Get bent, buddy. Right. I don't care.
And that's what I love about this. So we can do some of that.
Right. Mm-hmm. No. And I like how you guys do respond to, a lot of the posts and whatnot as much as possible. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, too, is that I think part of it, too, is it's like, people are convinced things like the DNR, et cetera, right? They're going to comment and no one's going to answer. They're not going to they're not going to be talking to the head wolf biologist at the DNR answering their question. They're going to get at most someone who's the social media coordinator giving them sort of generic answers. And I think for us, it's, hopefully people like feel like, if I see them here, like the people doing the work are going to respond. And we're not It's the very researchers doing it are the one answering your questions. So you kind of have direct access to that. Whether you agree with that or not, you still have direct access, and we will engage in your conversation, even if we think what you're saying is, a little ridiculous, or even just straight up unpleasant.
There's a lot of that.
So,
and at some point you got to go. You know what? We're not getting anywhere with this.
So you got to say
ignorant
goodbye.
person. So we're just going to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, as long as people
else.
don't cross line of what I would say is like they're super vulgar, become obnoxious.
Right.
If they're doing that, then we're going to block. If you come on and just start dropping F-bombs about how you hate all the wolves and you want to die, or you just start posting pictures of mutilated wolves to show you hate them, like that to me is like ridiculous, right?
Yep.
But if you want to come say like, I wish there were fewer wolves, and you want to say your opinion and it's respectful and you're not, even if some people don't like it, right? As long as you're not being contrarian just to cause trouble, that's fine. We're happy with that, right? As long as people can just be respectful with their opinions, that's really all we want, which seems like a pretty standard thing, because some stuff people put, I'm like, can you imagine writing that and having your name
attached
your
picture
Well,
forever?
That's what amazes me.
I just sometimes I have a folder on my desktop that's called nice comments from nice people, and when I see the really ridiculous ones, I take a screenshot. And so I got a whole library of just these, because it's like sometimes I'm just so amazed that someone would actually say that online.
No, they're comfortable with it too, and like owning it.
Well, even that, or the weirdos that somebody makes a comment and say, for you guys, like, what would you know about wolves? You're from Minneapolis or whatever. It's like, dude, why would you research somebody like that just to attack them?
Because I think they want, it's what people do, right?
Yeah,
it's like
that's what people do nowadays.
Grasp onto
when you've got nothing else to live for, Dean.
Exactly.
You get desperate with your hobbies.
I can't argue with this guy with his big words, so I'm going to look up where he's from.
Or it's the classic where I can almost I could draft a social media argument about wolves, no problem. It'd be something like, you don't live here, and then they'll argue about who's lived there long, who's dealt with them longer, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of goes on and it kind of devolves. And,
especially when they live in their mom's basement.
I mean, who these people are, I have no idea.
Right.
So,
I mean, this morning we were going to post, I was going to post, hey, we're going to talk to Tom from BWP today. Anybody wants, if you want us to ask a question, let us know. Then I thought,
we know what those questions are going to be.
I probably can't ask most of those questions.
Tom's a pretty nice guy.
Tom is, I do like Tom.
I would not feel comfortable asking those questions.
I know, but it's like, we should make up what those questions might be. And
there you go.
I think the thing is, we're not afraid to answer any questions. I mean, people have, truly, there's not a question we've not been asked, probably.
So, on the average night, how many wolves sleep in your bed with you?
A couple,
At what age do you wean them off the bottle?
That's right.
The Scotch bottle.
Do you exclusively feed them fawns?
Well, yeah, because then that will get rid of the hunters and help the wolves at the same time.
Right.
So.
And squirrels,
That's right.
I did notice that squirrels are they're like little ninjas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that was seen that one attack that wolf. Thank God that wolf's okay.
And then
people were mad at us for sharing that because it was showing the squirrel's death or something, and I'm like,
I know. Dean told me that one today.
I read a few of them. It's like, are you serious? It's like
that squirrel provoked that wolf.
It bit the wolf first.
That's right. You don't attack somebody's face and not expect to get.
It was a provoked attack.
That squirrel was taught the lesson that my chihuahuas need to be taught. Right. Don't mess with the bigger dogs.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
No, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and the photos and the videos. There's a video of how many, was it a pack of 6, attacking your camera, or at least coming up and chewing on a little bit and just so inquisitive. And
are we talking about wolves or squirrels now?
Wolves.
I think his summer staff.
Yeah. Pack of 6 wolves really thought our camera was pretty special this winter. I thought that was a pretty cool video.
Yeah, so I think that was this happens a lot in the wintertime where you have packs coming up to cameras, but then that one in particular, they all just came and started biting it. The camera was all right, but they just see some novel object and it's like a dog. I mean, it's very dog-like to come see it, bite it, chew it, and then they leave.
Curious.
Middle
of the night.
So we've got lots. That's the kind of stuff that we have lots of footage of that in the winter, and it's just kind of like how much do we want to share of that kind of stuff versus other interesting things? So,
Yeah.
I try to share what I get, but I don't get anything half as exciting as you guys do.
No, you don't.
I know. I guess all I get is pictures.
So, was that just today, the post from just north of Grand Rapids here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There was a wolf that was, it sounds like, illegally shot.
Yep.
We call that poaching.
Poaching
Mid-March.
in mid-March.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you find out about it?
So that wolf was wearing a GPS collar. So it was we were actually studying its predation behavior this winter. It was actually we had it and its litter mate collared. So they were 1-year-old wolves. We had been studying them actually all of last summer and then into the winter as well, tracking their movements, visiting the spots. They spent more than an hour in the wintertime to find where they're killing prey. And then in early March, it and its sibling both dispersed from their packs in they went different directions. Its sibling is now over by Red Lake, has been hanging out there for quite a while. But this one came down to the Grand Rapids area for a bit and then was still wandering around. So it wasn't localized or anything like that. And we got a mortality signal. So the collars all have mortality signals, which basically when the collar stops moving, we get an alert that says, something's, the wolf is dead or somehow the collar's not moving. And usually that's a mortality. And so, because it was a long ways from where we were at, we were able to get some folks or a person we knew in this area go check it out for us and recover it. And they weren't certain. It wasn't clear when they recovered it what the cause of mortality was. We had a pretty good idea. I mean, even before we found that wolf, I had a pretty good idea. If this wolf is dead, what likely would be the cause of mortality? I mean, human-caused mortality, usually illegal killings, usually the number one cause of mortality for most wolves living in human-dominated landscapes, which even though we're in northern Minnesota, it's still a human-dominated landscape in terms if you have people who have substantially altered it. There's a lot of people still around. So we suspected it had been shot or something like that. And so we got the wolf to a lab. They did a necropsy, which is an autopsy for animals, and quickly found the cause of death, which were 3 gunshot wounds in different parts of the animal's body. And then obviously once we know it's an illegal killing, then we're required regardless to share with the Fish and Wildlife Service right now because we have a permit with them. Any source of mortality, we have to report to them, right? Whether it's natural or human caused. Then obviously if it's human caused, then they are the ones in charge of following up if that was illegal, incidental. I mean, obviously incidental would be like a car collision, right? They're probably not going to look into that as like an intentional act maybe. But when there's obviously gunshot wound, that's an intentional act. So then they're in charge of that. And usually what happens is we give them the information we're aware of. This is what the collar data says. We work with them if they have any questions, and then it's kind of handed to them. And then we hear nothing about it, right? It kind of it's their investigation. Right. And so we're not getting updates on who they're talking to or anything like that. It's just kind of like, thanks. And that's fine with us because that's not our job.
Right. So then obviously since it is illegal to kill a wolf in Minnesota because they're federally protected, then it goes to the feds.
Yes. Yep. So. And I don't know how that works because it's not something I'm involved in. Like if there's also state and federal level, crimes that can be, because obviously even if an animal's not federally listed and you poach an animal in Minnesota, there's still consequences to doing that. So I don't know how that all works because we're not involved in that. But obviously at this point, we had it, and then there's federal investigators that are the ones leading that.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is probably a good time to do our obligatory statement.
What's our obligatory statement?
What was that?
What's our obligatory statement?
Poaching is wrong. It's illegal to break the law.
And
what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's illegal to break the law.
No matter what animal it is, poaching is wrong. We're sportsmen here.
Yes, we do not condone that behavior.
No. We don't condone illegal acts.
Down the Barrel or MDHA.
None of the organizations I'm associated with.
Wolf Project.
No. But I do think, it is an important thing to note, though. I think it's unfortunate, like a lot of people obviously assume when there's an animal that's illegally killed, right? It's like, oh, the hunters killed it, right? And that's the stuff you see on social media. And realistically, when you look at a lot of wolf mortality patterns in the Great Lakes region and other places where wolves are at, a lot of the illegal killing does happen around hunting season, which isn't really all that surprising, right?
Right.
But I think what's important to remind people is like, while the majority of, let's say, poachers might be hunters, that doesn't mean that the majority of hunters are poachers, right? And I think sometimes, and it's unfortunate because I think these sort of instances can provide a bad name for a lot of people who are being ethical.
Right.
They would never do something like that. And we know many hunters in our area who have seen collared wolves. I mean, we get reports when opening day comes or things like that. You know, I get texts and messages on social media from folks who are hunting and you're like, oh, just saw this wolf or, you know, saw a wolf with a white collar, or we'll get videos they'll send us from their tree stand. So I think that's an important thing where it's people want to latch on. Again, if you're inclined to believe that all hunters are bad, you're going to assume that they're all going to go shoot a wolf. And so I think that clarification is really important, even if people might feel strongly about it.
What's ridiculous is the people that there's a comment here. I don't blame them for doing that.
No,
it's still poaching, but
it's illegal.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's a little interesting about with wolves in particular, obviously people are frustrated and different perspectives on wolf management. But like, let's take an example of deer, right? If other deer hunters found out that someone's poaching deer, the general response would be pretty upset at that person, right?
Right.
For sure.
Because it violates the rules of sort of hunting and hunting
ethical
culture, right?
Deer hunting,
and I think sometimes with wolves, you see things like that online that unfortunately give the whole hunting community this bad representation, because let's say you're not a hunter and you're scrolling on our social media. Those are the kinds of things you remember, right? Is that guy or that person, right? Saying those things. And then they assume that's what everyone's like. You know, they're all like, yeah, shoot all the wolves, right?
Oh, they're not secretly. Trust me. We go to sports shows. We hear it all the time.
Well, that's probably
you go on social media and they're doing it.
It's not everybody, but we do hear it.
But I think it's, you know, we get the SSSs, obviously, all that kind of stuff, right? And I think that's the sort of stuff that's unfortunate because it does undermine the fact that people who hunt might have strong principles which guide the way that they do the things they do, right? And I think I just think that's generally unfortunate and only adds fuel to the fire, I think, of the controversy that already exists around wolves. So
100%. Yeah. And that's really where I draw the line on our social media accounts. Is you said it very eloquently earlier. I think you said when people become slightly unpleasant, I would say when they become absolute dicks,
right?
That's when, you know, the comment gets deleted, or like you shouldn't find any comments on like the MDHA Facebook that say SSS. Right?
Absolutely not.
Because if you are promoting or Wolf Report, right? If you're promoting illegal behavior, we're gonna take it down.
We're gonna call you out or delete you.
Yeah.
And some of that, and you know, we're talking earlier about vulgar stuff. Some of that gets caught right away.
Automatic. We can set that up.
That just gets rid of that kind of stuff. And,
but you know,
but then people will say we're censoring them.
Right? Well, absolutely, I am 100%.
Yeah, sorry,
because I don't like
you know what? If they're coming on your page, they can do whatever they want on their own page.
Right.
You know?
Make your own page.
Start your own page. It's a free country. You can say whatever you want on ours. Sayonara.
But I think the thing that's unfortunate is I think sometimes it like people who say that, I think they're losing sight of let's say the big picture maybe of their perspective, which is ideally they want more people to see the world through their perspective, right? And when you do things like that, it almost certainly ensures that people will not see the world through your perspective. It alienates people, right?
For sure.
And I think like some of it's just, and that's just social media in general, but I think sometimes people don't sit back and be like, what would be the great thing? Ideally, I'd want everyone to see it from, let's say, a hunting perspective, right? And that's going to verify that these people remained firmly entrenched that hunters are awful people.
Right.
And I think,
exactly.
and people on the other side do the same thing too. And I think that that's just unfortunate because it just adds polarization.
Well, and I think that's why hunters need to disassociate ourselves from those types of people in those types of organizations that allow that kind of conversation to happen.
I certainly think so. I don't think that's beneficial. I just don't see how that.
I don't see how it is either.
Bridges any gaps with other
Absolutely
people who see
not.
the world differently. So
yeah, it's weird. It's like the one and only species that I have ever heard people openly advocating for poaching.
Right.
Yeah.
And then other people are okay with it.
And you know, the real irony, which I think is almost more ironic, is that the level of poaching that occurs almost certainly is doing absolutely nothing.
Right.
Which is, I know that boggles some people's minds, but you know, let's even put it at a high estimate, 15% of the wolf population is getting poached illegally. I doubt it's that high, but let's say it was. Even that almost certainly doing nothing. So like they're out there, like we're doing something good. And then it's like, actually, you're not doing anything all said and done on a population level.
Right.
But you're convinced you are, and also wanting other people to start doing it. And I just don't understand the rationale behind some of it. So
I don't think they do either.
I don't think they do either. Yeah. It's
Some people
it's a
just
knee jerk. Hey, my
ignorant.
buddies are going to think this is cool for 2 seconds kind of thing.
Yep.
I don't think there's any real logic behind it.
no, there's not. So
And on that note,
New research.
Yes.
ooh, do we have new research?
So we'll be starting some, hopefully this winter, some work where we'll be collaring some deer as part of some recent grant funding we got from the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. That'll be in some sense like separate from our project, but also leveraging a lot of the data we've got and resources we have in our project to kind of help that project also succeed. And the goal there is to collar deer in our area and try to understand survival rates and understand the sort of role of 3 different things: predators, habitats, and winters on deer survival, and also deer movement rates as well in the area. And we're going to be collaring adult does, because on a population level, does are the important sort of population unit, right? Unfortunately, some people might not be happy to hear this, but bucks really don't matter all that much, in terms of a reproductive perspective, because bucks can obviously impregnate numerous does. Even if there's some research that suggests you'd have to kill like 70% of bucks before you have a meaningful population impact, because does are really the main reproductive unit. So anyway, so that's why we're studying white-tailed deer does. And we'll just try to understand how many of them die annually. What do they die from? And then the collars will take fine scale movements so we can understand where are they spending time, both in the winter and the summer, to try to understand how habitat, and in particular, we're interested in things like how habitat management and how things like logging are influencing where deer spend time, and then ultimately maybe their survival. I mean, that would be our main goal, to say, can we understand, okay, these deer spent time in this kind of habitat predominantly. Do they have higher survival rates than deer that spend time in these kind of habitats? And that requires long-term. I'm not sure. I mean, that'd be our goal. That requires a lot of a large sample size to make that association. But I think that would be really powerful for understanding when you have all these different factors at play. Habitat's often the one that's hardest to wrap our minds around because it's the most difficult to change. Well, I guess winter is too, obviously, but it's a thing that takes a long time to influence. And so, and it's hard to understand, right? Because you're like, oh, I see deer in a clear cut. I see deer here. I see deer there, right? It's hard to understand, well, where does that deer spend most of its time? And how does that influence its susceptibility to starvation or to getting killed by wolves or something like that? So the hope is we can answer some of these questions, which then help us understand ways you could either change habitat, let's say management to, let's say, benefit deer, while also maybe still being able to do things like timber harvesting, but maybe there's different ways you could do that that could be more beneficial to deer. Right. Or ways we're thinking about, okay, when we're doing habitat management, what kinds of habitat do we need more of on the landscape that are not currently there? And obviously we want to understand the role of winter severity, how that influences wolf predation levels. I mean, that's something we're obviously interested in studying wolves. There's been quite a bit of work on that, but we have, in other places, but there's not been a ton in our area. And so we're really interested to understand that and to understand just survival rates through time of adult deer. So it should be exciting. We're super interested to see kind of what we find, but it's sort of a new area for us because we've been doing wolf stuff.
I'm excited because I think that's going to help out. And I'm just honestly excited to hear you guys have deer in your area. Right. On top of that,
they're just putting a collar on one dead old drop time.
Well, yeah, and the DNR brings some in every year, right?
Right. Yeah, they transport them.
So they have some.
No, I think that'll definitely help everything, and I think that's a pretty cool study to be able to do.
And so you're just going to be doing that study in the same area you're doing the wolf study, right?
Yep.
How come you guys don't expand your study areas ever?
Well, so the main reason for us is because right now, the one, like, let's say you're doing a statistical analysis, right? You want a lot of, you want to be able to throw in a lot of other information that could show patterns through time. So for instance, like you might want to know what is wolf density in the area, right? Habitat characteristics, other things like that. Well, because we've been studying wolves in this area for a very long time, we've got really good data on all of these other factors, right? And so then by studying deer in that habitat, we can now then connect patterns of survival of adult deer to all of these other things we've been tracking through time. If we were to, like, let's say, start collaring deer in areas that we don't have that data, we would have to really speculate on what's going on in those areas, or, add additional work to try to understand things like what's the wolf density in that area?
Right.
What's the habitat like? So, like, for instance, in our area, every year we have data. We use aerial imagery to map out all of the logged habitats in our forest and how old those cuts are, right? And that is something that takes a lot of time to go through year by year for 1,000 square mile area and digitize every logged area, assign it its age, right? So we've been doing that for a long time. So that's a data set that we can now leverage for an analysis like this. Okay. So there's a lot of value of doing work in the same area through time because you have all of these other pieces of information that if we were to start new would be really difficult to get that up and running, especially in like a 3-year study, which is what this will be. And that's pretty short on wildlife. Any study, right? 3 years, like, what if you got 2-3 really mild winters, or let's say we have issues getting enough collars out the first year. All of a sudden you only have 2 more years and that's it, right? That's not a very long time. So
you can't tell me per inch of poplar growth how many deer are killed by wolves on a logging landing.
No.
How many wolves eat how many berries per day because there's no deer and they only eat the nuisance beavers.
That's right.
Right?
Only the nuisance beavers.
Yeah.
So that means they'd be doing something good.
That's true.
So
right.
That's true. That.
Right.
Yeah.
You cannot say that.
You can't eat the nuisance. You can't eat the nuisance beavers.
I like to say annoying beavers.
Annoying. Yes.
Hey, do you guys want to hear my impression of Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, ask me a question.
Do you like wolves?
Bunch of smart science words. Kilometers.
I don't think you mentioned kilometers today.
Not today. Not today.
Speaking of social media, I had a comment. We put something online about wolf fear studying, and I accidentally used kilograms because that's how we measure wolves, right? And so I was writing this post with, and I said kilograms, and someone made this really unpleasant post about just how condescending it was that we would use the metric system just to show how elitist we were. We would use it, and I was like, usually we put both of them, but I forgot. This person just thought that was so inappropriate.
I think to curb some of that, Tom, whenever you say kilograms, just mention how many miles you are from Canada.
We're basically Canadian.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
much. And what do they use up there?
You need to use some obscure unit. Like
just make up your own.
This wolf weighed 400 Pop-Tarts.
But now that you said that you're so close, you're pretty much basically Canada. Now people are going to attack you for that because, I thought U of M was, part of that.
They'll find anything.
They will find anything. I mean, this podcast here is going to be attacked and listened to by people that are going to spin every word we say.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, just I don't want to mention any names, but
yeah, they will not pick up on the sarcasm in our voices.
Well, they don't want to.
Right.
It doesn't fit their narrative. So
no, because everything we say is true.
Everything's
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hate everything that they love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are here
like old drop time
to make their lives worse.
Absolutely. Yes. Old drop time. You look so happy. We have a picture of him on the wall actually right now.
That is a cool. I'm looking at Facebook. That is a cool picture of a red fox jumping into the snow.
Yeah, we got some good ones this winter.
Yeah, Tom's like, we got 30,000 of those, bud.
None of those.
Oh, I like that one.
So, I know. That's an intense looking bear.
Wow, that bear looks angry.
That thing is awesome. That's got to be a mix of a grizzly or, the polar bear or something.
Wow, where's that one? I need the GPS bears. Locations of that last one.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
That was a buck.
Yeah, actually, what's really interesting is I've been keeping a list, so we've, believe it or not, although deer density is pretty low in our area, relatively speaking, there are actually quite a few really nice bucks, and we get them on cameras quite a bit. And we'll share some. I'm sure that'll make some people angry that
right, because your wall's covered with trophies. I get it.
Yeah. So, but it's really interesting. I mean, that's one example. I mean, there's a lot on public land. It doesn't mean that you're going to see them all the time, but there are some really nice bucks up there. In part because you have low human population density. We also have cameras in places where people aren't generally willing to go
Yep.
And so there you have a lot more possibility. So, you'll see some really nice bucks in our area.
Yeah, I just saw when Dean was scrolling through the pictures. That was a monster.
So is it? So with this new deer study, Voyageurs Wolf /deer.
Well, so we would describe it as like it's not really like it's sort of like separate from our project in the sense of like it's got its own funding. We're going to end up hiring like a postdoc who will run a lot of that work because it's a lot of additional work. You've got you got a collar deer. You have to do all the permitting, capture protocols. You got a contract. And it's a lot of time and effort to do that, right? So it's not something we can take on in our project, but we're going to work collaboratively. So like we have things like ATVs and other equipment that can be used when, let's say, you need to go get a deer that's died or something, right? That project will use kind of pro bono, right? So we're kind of using it synergistically to run alongside our project, even though it's not, let's say, our project per se. Like it's not something we're going to continue doing. Like once the funding runs out, if we want to do additional deer work, we'll get more funding, but we're not just going to keep it going. Whereas like with our wolf stuff, it's like if the funding runs out, we still are going to keep going with what we're doing. Now our hope would be to continue doing the work for a long time because we think that ultimately is the most value is you're studying intensively predator species and its main prey. And if you have really good data on both of them for a very long period of time, you can see it. And I think part of it we'd be excited about to do down the road, things like studying fawn survival rates. We'd think that's really interesting. Also getting bucks collar to be really interesting too, even though they're not maybe as important on a population level. Just the part of me that's just curious to understand how these bucks move, particularly in the rut. And then in particular, we'll see wolves killing bucks in the fall and late and early winter because presumably they've become exhausted from the rut or sometimes maybe distracted from the rut. These have been hypotheses biologists have speculated about because they'll see not just deer, but moose and elk and things like this will get killed by bucks, or by wolves, which is really fascinating when you think about, in theory, those should be the most formidable animals of any of a prey population, right? To predators because they've got big antlers, they're the largest, and yet nonetheless, wolves sometimes can take them down. So it makes us just sort of wonder, how does that work, right? How does that happen? So we'd like to do that down the line. And some of that, I don't know if you guys ever listened to the podcast by the Deer Lab out of the Mississippi State University. If you haven't, you should listen to it. It's really fascinating. They're biologists, scientists at Mississippi State, and they cover all these different aspects of deer biology. And some of it's a lot more, I'd say, based on like maintaining your food plot and things like that. But they have a lot on deer movement behaviors, and they have some about the work they've done looking at buck movements in the rut and things, and are they nocturnal, and where do they bed, and how many day beds do they use? All this really interesting stuff. And but that's down south in a place that's not Minnesota. But as I listened, I was like, wow, that'd be really cool to have up here. Because both, if you're sitting in the woods here hunting, and then also with our trail cameras, we see these bucks on camera in the rut that the camera sitting there for all year. And it's like, never see that buck. And then all of a sudden, just like, we'll get 3 really nice bucks once on a camera. And then we never see them again.
Yeah. That happens by my house all the time. So if you can figure that out.
But it's super interesting, right? Also I also think about that, like hunting, even if you're like, well, I'm not seeing anything, but it's like, it takes one buck moving at the wrong time or right time, I suppose, to end up in front of you, right? And it's like, that would be really fascinating to understand how that moves, how far do they travel, things like that. And that, is that going to change how you might manage population? Maybe not, but I think it'd be fascinating just from a natural history perspective to understand.
Absolutely.
So because I'm not catching him on camera, he's still there?
Maybe, or just like how, or just the fact of, in a place like Minnesota, bucks, maybe because there's lower deer densities or something, they have to travel a lot more extensively, right? So what is that home range? How does that change? And also if you think about, people put their camera out in September or whatever and say, oh, I see this buck on here. And then do you actually see that buck in November, or does it go elsewhere? Because we've had other cameras where it's like you're watching this buck in velvet all, July, August, September, thinking, oh, that's the place. And then October, November, nowhere to be found. Right.
At nighttime, you see them, but that's it.
Right.
Yeah. And so I just think it'd be just simply interesting to understand that. And then the predation side adds another element that I think would be really fascinating.
Yeah. I think that would be very cool.
So I think what Tom's saying
excited.
His new study, he's going to license it to MDHA.
Voyageurs Deer Project.
To get monster bucks, the secret.
I'm starting to think Voyageurs Wolf Project is just like a cover story.
Is that what it is?
Tom really found like some prime deer hunting land, and he's telling people it's flooded with wolves. Don't ever hunt here.
Oh,
We give that
I get
perception.
it.
Really
I
high
get
wolf
it.
densities.
Right. Yeah. High wolf densities, no deer.
I mean, he got a wolf on
He did
camera.
mention
There can't
drop
be any
time.
deer.
I used to have a deer by my house with a drop time.
Yeah, and then you got a picture of a wolf and gone.
It left forever.
Never seen it.
A fat wolf.
Yeah,
Actually, the wolf I had on camera the other day was a skinny wolf.
Yeah,
I felt
pretty
kind of
skinny.
bad for it, but
yeah.
he did not get my fawn. So,
That's hard to believe,
well,
I mean,
I think the
deer
fawn
sleep-
literally
deer
ran to
sleep,
my
but wolves don't.
doorstep.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think it's okay.
Good.
But when I saw that, I did think you, Tom.
There you go.
That damn Tom.
That damn Tom.
Keep your wolves up there. How dare you let them out?
We'll try our best.
Yeah.
Next time I see one, I'm just going to call you and let you know one of your wolves got
I
out.
think
Yeah.
we got loose.
Check number 362.
Oh man.
No, but I would say, I mean, from the story today about the wolf that was poached north of Grand Rapids, tell them when they put collars on these wolves to put great big high vis collars on them. Because I seen your pictures and I couldn't even see the collar on that thing. And that might help people. I mean, I don't think it's right.
Are you saying
No.
let me know which ones I can shoot?
No.
I
I'm
just
just-
think he's safe
It
when I
might
pull the
make some
trigger.
ignorant people not shoot them, because some of the wolves that I get pictures of on Wolf Report, them things are huge. I don't even know. I feel bad for the wolves. They're carrying like a 12-volt battery on them.
Well, some of them. So the challenge with wolves is that wolves are really hard on collars because they're running through the woods, banging them up, and then they chew. Right, other pack members chew. So a lot of collars have these really thick plastic housings. Even though the collar itself is not that heavy, it looks bulky.
Right.
And different collar companies have different designs. Some of them are a lot worse than others. And that's essentially to create a thick enough plastic that they can't crack.
chew
So
through it.
obviously, you can think about if a wolf can crack through a moose's femur, its ability to crack a plastic housing is going to be pretty high.
Yeah.
The reason, though, that like with our collars, so some of them have tape on them. The one that got killed north of Grand Rapids actually had a solar collar on. So the belting of the collar actually was a solar panel.
Really?
That was so this is new technology that a collar company we're working with uses or has introduced, and they used it mainly for ungulates, deer, moose, things like that, because those animals are not hard on collars in the same way. And we're like, well, that would be pretty cool if you could do that for a wolf. Then you could keep a collar on for a lot longer, because that's the biggest challenge with studying wolves is the collars. There's limited battery life, and you can only keep it on so long, and then you got to catch more, and so you're constantly doing that. So this one had a solar collar. We contacted the company, so we want to try it. They said, we do not recommend doing that. We said we don't care, because they didn't want the liability of saying, we buy the collar and they're not cheap, and then it gets destroyed because the wolves are destroying it, and then we want them to give us a new one. They're like, we will not replace this. And we said, okay, that's fine. We'll try it, nonetheless. So we are the first people to ever put, actually that wolf was the first wolf that we're aware of that ever had a solar collar put on it for research.
Is that why it seems so slim?
Well, it seems it's dark, right?
Right.
The belting's dark and the collar's really slim because there's not a lot there. So it doesn't, because in theory you have solar energy powering a battery, so you don't need a big unit to house the battery.
Okay.
This one had a small 1D cell lithium battery, or 1C, which is a very small lithium battery on the bottom, but that's it. Most of the wolf collars will have like a 1D or 2D battery plus the GPS units on top oftentimes, because that just increases connectivity. This didn't have that, so it looked very sleek, right? Which is part of the reason we want to use it too. It's much lighter,
Absolutely.
and then in theory, if it's getting rechargeable source of energy, this wolf in theory could have been collared for a long time. Now we did find out, since that wolf was killed, we got the collar back and realized that collar that belting had been toast for a while. It had been running on the battery. It had worked all summer and fall, and then in the winter time, at some point, it crapped out, and there'd been puncture marks in it from wolves biting it and hitting trees or whatever.
But, at least you got the license plate of the truck that shot him, so that's
right.
good.
There's a little camera on there caught it. So
from the satellite.
But in some sense, you actually don't want people, like when you're studying, most of this is true of a lot of wildlife, you don't want people, you want people to basically behave as they typically would.
Right.
And not have that, let's say it being collared, tagged, influence the way that they would make a decision.
But
right?
some people need that little bit of nudge. Is like,
Now, to stop people poaching, maybe that's true, but I'm saying like from a research perspective, right? You want to say, if you want to ask me, like, what % of the population is actually illegally killed every year, which is a very difficult metric to get, because clearly some people will see the collar or the ear tag and not shoot it in the same way.
And I wouldn't imagine they're self-reporting.
No. But we have had a couple in the past where we find the wolf with like its ears cut off and the collar missing, like dropped in the road, is like, here's your wolf, you know.
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens. But, you know, it's a very challenging thing to estimate how prevalent it is. So in some sense, the fact that people can't see the collar is actually fine with us, because we don't, we want to have as close to a
I mean, I understand it from a scientific standpoint. You want to tabulate that number.
So, but I get like, yes, to stop people from poaching it. Like, if you had a big bright.
I just think that when people see that, hunters in the woods, are in their head, they're like, that one's being tracked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
So, but here's the flip side of it is in like in our area, as time's gone on, we've actually had very few wolves in our actual study area illegally killed. Almost all of it happens outside of our study area. Whereas when we first started, for the first 5 or 6 years, almost all of it was inside the study area. We had 1 or 2 every year getting illegally killed. And then we started sharing on social media. All of a sudden, that basically became 0 every year.
Because they're worried it's going to have a collar.
I think people know not only that it has a collar, but that we also have really good tracking technology on these individuals. So I actually think but because you can't see it, it makes you a little more hesitant of like,
fair.
I don't want to shoot this on a whim. Whereas if it's, you know, it changes people's perception, I think. And some of that probably isn't all due to the fact people are afraid. And, you know, a lot of people we've built bridges with and things like that too, maybe traditionally would have shot one, but now won't, because they know us and we've had a good relationship with them. But some of it I think is people know, like, we can pinpoint the moment that wolf died, where it died, where it was.
It'll keep the honest poachers honest.
Right. You know, because there's satellites in the sky watching you.
That's right. So
Tom's got satellites.
And they put cameras in wolves' eyes too.
we can see what they see.
Exactly.
I knew
That's
so.
the next thing.
Cyborg.
I actually want to see a wolf with a GoPro on it. That would be so cool.
Well, we put one of those.
Really?
Yeah. So if you go to our YouTube channel and you look up like wolf with camera collar, a couple of years, 2019, 2020, we put 4 collars out there called camera collars that had a GoPro built in the collar.
You know, I think I do remember seeing that.
It doesn't. It's neat, but it doesn't look as cool as you would think, because essentially what you just see most of the time is the wolf and the collars moving, swaying back, and
running
forth,
through the
right?
grass.
And so it's like almost nauseating, you know, because you look at the footage and like you're going through, you're like, gosh, this is headache inducing. We did get some cool stuff, and we got them killing or caught them eating fawns they had just killed. One going after fish. We got them just kind of walking through like cornfields. One of them was dispersed into western Minnesota, and we got video footage of them standing on a road, and you can see like a business sign in the middle of the day, and like looking at someone in the back of someone's house, and you know, stuff like this, right? Going across a cornfield. But after we did it, we were like, yeah, we didn't see enough there that to us was worth it, because those chew up battery really quickly, because you're running a camera multiple times a day recording HD footage. So we did it 4 times, and then we're like, this isn't worth it, at least right now. So, but yeah, so some people are trying it. I have seen footage of people like in the winter time, they'll put them out. They'll catch wolves with helicopters, and then they'll put those on with a GoPro built in it. And they get some cool stuff in winter because they're running around with packs, and you can see them like interacting with pack members and stuff. In the summer in Minnesota, it's just kind of like vegetation.
Yeah, I was going to say, a bunch of green. Green.
Not nearly as exciting.
Right. Huh. Pretty boring.
So don't give us the fake news number. Actually, in a given year, how many humans are killed by wolves in the state of Minnesota? We talking like 3,000?
Probably
4,000.
It's a lot of kids, I can tell you that.
I mean, there's like what, a couple million wolves?
A couple years ago, it was all the pets and dogs, or dogs and cats. That's what I heard. Right. And soon it was going to be the kids. That's what I read online.
They're still saying that,
and it still hasn't happened, which makes you wonder. But what's going to happen is someday, maybe down the future, it'll happen once. It'll be like, see, we knew it. And then it will be like, we got to get rid of every one of those things.
Right.
Which is unfortunate. But
see,
yeah,
BWP is making fun of dead kids now.
Just think it's a joke.
Yeah. Tom wants to feed your kids to wolves.
That's right. No, but I mean, it is an interesting. I mean, we have people who tell us. I mean, the human safety thing is always fascinating. So we've got people working on our project, and most of them are young folks coming out of college. A lot of them haven't spent, let's say, tons of time in wolf range. Certainly not northern Minnesota. And so we have people going out for every day from April to basically November by themselves, doing field work, right? And we're going to spots wolves will spend time seeing wolves, whatever, right? And we carry bear spray predominantly for bears, and then potentially people, if we encounter some strange folks. Actually, people are what I'm most afraid of out there for a lot of people. And anyway, so we've done this for now 11 years. Never had a single instance that even got remotely close to like this wolf was doing something strange that we were uncomfortable with or something like that, right? But nonetheless, we still have people who are afraid to go. They, I talk to, they go out in the woods, or they say they always carry their gun with them or whatever, right. Or they're getting treed in their deer stand and this sort of stuff, right? And it's always fascinating when we try to tell them, like, we've got these people who are not, outdoorsmen, and you're telling us you're a professed outdoorsman, and you're telling us how you need to carry this for your safety. Right. And it's just a little irony there of like, these are not, of all the things to be concerned about in the woods, wolves are not one of them.
No, absolutely not.
There's nothing about seeing a wolf that's ever concerned me in the woods. So
moose, on the other hand,
I was just going to say, I've been going to the boundary waters since 1990, and this is illegal to say now. I never was one of those people that hung his food pack up, because now you're just real. You can't say that, but I never seen a bear. Never had to deal with a bear up there in all those years. I've seen wolves. Never was worried about them once. I thought it was always like a cool thing to see wolf. The one animal that has chased me and has been in my campsite and that I was scared of was a moose.
Yeah, they're so territorial.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's why we got to get rid of all of them.
The moose. I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't need to worry about wolves as a human being around here.
I mean, even think about like deer. If you've ever been to Duluth in the rut, they have some huge bucks in Duluth.
I've seen them. Yeah, I used to live there.
And my wife was out a couple of years ago walking her dog. We don't live in Duluth now, but she did for a while for her work, and was out with the dog, and this big buck starts coming where she's out in the park, and this buck starts coming, and she calls me. She's like, this buck keeps coming towards me, and I don't know what to do, and it was just one of these things, right? And they get in that strange ruddy mood, right? And,
right.
So those are the sort of things that are a lot more terrifying than, in my opinion, than a wolf looking at you or something. Right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
So, but people also interpret. I mean, if you're convinced that wolves are a threat, you're going to interpret everything they do as threatening, right? And I think that's part of the challenge, right? Someone will say, "Oh, this wolf sat there and he just looked at me. Wasn't even afraid of me. It's lost its fear." Yep. It's like, well, just like dogs, sometimes they're just curious or they're just figuring it out. It doesn't mean they're a threat, but if you're inclined to believe that, then it becomes evidence, and then that kind of builds, right? And so try, when people approach us with videos or something, to try to say, like, yeah, that wolf wasn't a threat to you, it was just looking at you,
right?
Because
I didn't know what the hell you were.
It was running at me from across the lake.
Right.
It was headed right to me. No, it's just running across the lake.
Well, especially too, if they can't smell you, if they're upwind, that's in particular when it seems to be most common, is they like can't smell you. They can see you, but they don't. The sense of smell is really what is strong. And we've had instances where I've been watching. I've been fortunate to encounter a wolf in the woods, and they're kind of looking at me. They don't see, and then I can see like the wind direction changes, and they get that scent, and then all of a sudden that's the trigger to be like, boom, they're gone, right? But sometimes people don't see that.
Well, the movies and social media and everything have really helped that.
Oh yeah,
you mean
certainly?
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to, downplay the quote unquote threat of wolves too much. Like, I'm not saying they're going to attack people by any means. I will say some people have lost pets to wolves.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, certainly.
Very sad for
sure. If it was my pet, I'd be rageful.
Yeah,
so
you'd be devastated, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
I will also
say my pet is bigger than a wolf. So
yeah,
I will also say that's a consequence of where you live. Right?
Unfortunately, in northern Minnesota, it is. Yes.
If you want to live in wolf territory, that is a side effect of living in wolf
territory.
It's a risk
for sure.
Right. Well, it's the same with bird feeders and bears. we always had bears on our front deck getting our bird feeders, and I'd call and complain, and they'd be like, "Oh, you can't feed the birds." Like, oh shit. Well, the bears are here first. No, this is a 2-year-old bear. I've been here first, but guess what? It's wildlife, so I don't stop feeding the birds for a while.
Sure.
So I mean, it's just one of those things you have to adapt.
And I think too. I think that's probably where there's legitimate. I mean, there is conflict, like you said. I mean, bear or wolves, and most of it happens during the breeding season when wolves are amped, right? And their hormones are for breeding, right, and eliminating competitors, right? And dogs are competitors, whether or not we understand why wolves think a dog is a competitor or not. And I think certainly, like if I found my dog, ripped up by a wolf, like, yeah, that would be pretty unpleasant. I think. And my wife and I have had these discussions because we live where 3 wolf packs come together. We have wolves behind our house, right at our house regularly. So it's a thing that we're very aware of. When we let them out in the winter or something, like we don't let them just out the door and just go wander, because there certainly is the possibility that he could run into a pack and he would probably be toast. And so I think it's being aware of that situational aspect. I think that people sometimes, we try to encourage people to be a little bit more aware when they've got their dogs in wolf range. It's like, you are living in wolf range. These are the sorts of things that increase the probability that you're going to have an incident. Going off leash, not being able to see your dog, not being able to get your dog to come back to you, right? Mm-hmm. Those sort of things are going to make it very difficult if you happen to encounter a wolf to get your dog back to you, where you could either scare the wolf away. Bear spray. I've told people carry bear spray, like if you're out, because that's a good deterrent if you ever have a wolf. Like let's say you're walking your dog on a leash and a wolf comes out. If you mace the dog and the wolf, you're probably a good chance your dog's going to not like it, but will probably get out of that alive, right? Mm-hmm. But otherwise, how are you going to break that up? Because a lot of the reports when wolves come after dogs is that they don't even seem to care about the people, right? Because they're so focused on this competitor and eliminating that they don't even see the person, right? And so we try to share with folks in the area, like how you can minimize those risks. You can't make it zero, right? But you can keep it pretty low. And actually, when you look at statistics in Minnesota, it is still very low relative to the number of people and the number of dogs you have in northern Minnesota. I mean, it's I think the Wildlife Service is 10 or 12, and I don't know how many thousands of dogs are probably in northern Minnesota. But it's a risk that you can't get away from entirely.
Yeah. So. No, well, it's like the whole, bear aware campaign, right? Yep. Like if you're in bear country, you need to take certain precautions. Nobody's out there calling for the extirpation of bears, right?
Right.
Should be the same with wolves, I think.
Yep. You used a big word there. Could you
extirpation is like a localized extinction.
Okay. All right. Kill all.
Yes.
Okay. Nobody's calling for the killing of all bears.
Sorry, I was doing another Tom impression.
I know. I get it, but
I'm just scientist.
I'm just translating.
Yep. I mean, I'll admit when we were camping up in Anakin area and whatnot, and it's like, yep, there's bears around, and yep, I'm nervous. And, and I've hunted around in wolf area and I've had tracks in my tracks. It's like, and you hear the howl. It's like, yep, it raises a hair. And it's like, yep, but I know they're there. Probably not going to hurt me a whole lot.
That's where you live,
but you just, again, you be aware and, it's not like the movies. So,
right.
They're not just out there.
Another analogy try to be like, there's think about things that are far more lethal than wolves. You'd be thinking something like ticks, right? I mean, you've got ticks everywhere, right?
Yeah.
They have all sorts of diseases that would be, on a population level for humanity, way worse than wolves ever will be, right? And we probably will never be able to really eliminate them.
That would be
right?
awesome.
But it would be awesome. But, you think about, okay, well, how do you adapt to that situation? You say, okay, I'm just going to take certain steps and precautions to ensure that I don't contract Lyme's disease, et cetera. And I think when you think about wolves and dogs or things, you just have to think about it that way. And some people don't. The challenge is when people don't want to change their behavior because they're just like, I shouldn't have to deal with this. Right. It's like, I wish I didn't have to deal with ticks. Right. Yeah. But they're not going away. So either I can adapt or I can risk.
I would just prefer to napalm my whole yard so there's no ticks. I mean,
yeah. Right. I revise a prior statement. We are in favor of poaching.
Ticks.
If you're poaching ticks.
Kill as many as you want.
Somebody's going to use that little snippet. They're going to use that snippet that says we're in favor of poaching.
Yeah,
Click it.
Right. This is going to be on a video tonight, dude.
that's right.
I actually won't because I ain't going to edit it tonight, but tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
New Jared AI.
Yeah.
Will be,
There you go.
Jared calls for the, what's your big word? Extirpation.
Extirpation
Of
of ticks.
well, they ain't going to go there. They ain't going to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's out there now.
yeah,
It's
you
out
did it. You
You're
know,
done.
they're listening
You're-
right now.
You're
Is there
done.
anything you want to say?
Satellites.
Satellites. It's in them.
I should have put my tinfoil cap on.
Right. I'm just saying, now's your chance because they're listening right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're not in
worldwide.
favor of poaching. Just kill the ticks.
We don't like wood ticks. That's all we're saying.
Technically, it wouldn't be poaching
I was going
ticks
to say, I
'cause
think
there's
it's
no
pretty
season.
Correct.
It's pretty legal, I suspect.
Correct.
Right.
So,
We don't need
far.
a tag yet.
Yet. Yeah, give it time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Give it time.
Right.
Make America tick free again.
Tick free.
The Voyager Tick Project. I'm sure you got to deal with plenty of those.
mhm.
Well, I don't know. I think that pretty well covered it, unless you guys got
I don't know if we actually covered anything.
I don't know what this was all a blur.
Yeah.
Who's here?
Tom.
Tom.
I was going to say, these are some softball questions this time, so that was good.
That's
So,
what we're going to hear. That's what they're going to say.
They're
Yeah.
cozying up to the wolf people.
You guys- yeah.
Okay,
you
let me
guys-
ask one hard
guys
one
are
before we
wolf
leave.
lovers.
Tom, why do you hate deer hunters so much?
right. Why do you got to make fun of them all the
They're
time?
just
Yeah.
a bunch of murderers.
That's right.
Oh, man.
Only if
No,
we're
You
good.
can't murder if it's in season.
That's right. Legal murder.
Yeah, legal murderers.
No, it was great to have you back on. We appreciate the data that you all are collecting out there.
Yeah.
I think it's beneficial to everyone in the state.
Yeah, and we love the Facebook page. I think that's where.
And I love
100%.
all the big words that you bring to the table here because I have to write them down
Yeah,
and look them up,
later.
and I can't because I can't spell half of them. So thanks for making me feel
Yeah.
ignorant again.
Right.
But, you know.
I do appreciate the brain capacity you bring to this studio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize. I was trying to speak simple.
No offense, Jared. No
So
offense,
he
Jared.
got rid of
I would never
kilometers, but he
claim to
used
be
other
smarter
words.
than Tom Gable. No, we love having you on. We'd love to have you back, even though you came on our podcast and you put in a plug for another podcast, and I just think that's rude.
But that was for Mississippi. It was for Mississippi.
Yeah.
Nobody up here cares about
But
Mississippi.
here's what I guarantee.
Half of them can't spell
I can
Mississippi.
guarantee you, if you guys listen to it, or people listening to this followed that and listen to some else, you'd be like, "That's pretty interesting stuff."
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely going to listen to it.
It's like I said, if you like deer hunting, like some of it's a little. I'm not someone who's real into food plots and all of that.
Yeah.
Like that's just not my jam when it comes to hunting. But if you like that, they got tons of that stuff, and they also have some really interesting stuff about. And it gets a little into the weeds, but like deer nutrition and the kinds of stuff that deer, because you sort of, it's easy to look at a deer, at least from my perspective, and be like, they just eat stuff, grass, vegetation, right? And they talk about some of the work they've done to understand what specifically they're eating, why are they eating certain plants, and what nutrients, stuff that I just really never probably would have been that interested in. But when you're in the car and you have 45 minutes to burn, it's like, that's really interesting stuff. So anyway, so I just think,
So what you're saying, Tom, is you need to study vegetarians more often. Give up on those meat eaters.
I'll say this.
Right.
It sounds like the most brutal study to do ever, where you just go out and watch what a deer eats, and then you go collect the plants and determine what's in them. That would be painstaking, brutal work.
But you know, that's a perfect job for somebody from Mississippi.
What else are they going to do? So,
Exactly.
That's a lot.
Well, I guess we'll go sit in the woods and watch a deer eat.
Yeah.
but actually, the reason I found out about it, I don't know if you guys, are you guys Outdoor News subscribers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There was an article last fall. They're talking to, I think his name's Bronson Strickland. They had a thing, something about bucks in the rut. There's some article that was in there, and it was him, and he was talking, and he's a professor there and has studied deer for a long time, and he mentioned his podcast. And so then I was driving home actually to go to Michigan to go deer hunting, and I was like, I'm going to listen to this. Felt appropriate timing. And I listened, I was like, wow, this is a really interesting podcast. So anyways, so they do use some big words, but I think you guys can figure that out.
We got Jared to translate.
Yeah.
So what was the guy's name?
I think his name was Bronson Strickland. I think he was one of
Bronson
the
Strickland.
founding members of the Deer Lab. If you look that up on
Yep.
Mississippi State's, they got a big web page, and they look at all sorts of really interesting stuff. So yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
so people like it.
And I know we talked about you studying some deer, so I'm really looking forward to a lot of that coming from you
I am
guys too
too.
in the future.
Mhm.
Probably the next.
I mean,
month
that's
or
the hope.
two.
I mean, it'd be fun to share updates. I mean, that's part of our goal too, is like the way we share our Wolf Project work. Once we
Right.
get that up and ground, is still using things like our Facebook page to share
Absolutely
interesting insights into what we're seeing with deer,
Mhm.
sources of mortality, things like that. You know, obviously people think a lot of these studies, you know, what we're trying to avoid is a lot of these studies sometimes get funded. You hear they're going to get funded. You might read about them in outdoor news, and then you just don't hear much for
Right.
a couple years. And then maybe you get one news article that's the update, and then
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
that, right?
Yep.
And trying to make this so that there's a steady stream of information coming out. And hopefully, you know, we'd love to chat with hunting organizations and things like that if they can tolerate being around some wolf biologists, so we can
Absolutely.
share our work and things like that.
Yeah, especially if you give
So-
GPS locations of those 12 pointers. That would be helpful.
Unfortunately, these
Yeah.
are does, so I don't think it's going to help you very much.
I don't know. I saw pictures a little while ago.
I guess
was
pictures.
telling-
We can tell you where that camera is. Good
Yeah.
luck. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
So yeah,
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
absolutely.
down.
Thanks for
we
having me.
appreciate you driving all the way down from
Yeah,
Wolf
it's
Country.
fun.
Right.
Keep
Probably,
the,
probably
keep
had
the
the
satire coming.
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Please do.
I'll admit, you know, we use it sparingly because obviously every time we do it, ends up
Making somebody
like,
mad.
Somebody mad, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. So, yes, keep up the funniness. This podcast, I'm sure we're going to hear shared on places we didn't even think of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
probably because of the things Jared said.
what
Yes.
is? So out of curiosity, what is your distribution? Like, how many people do you get listening to your podcast?
About 3.2 million now
Oh, I
I-
would
That's
say.
pretty good.
I
Yeah.
thought it was. What's the population of the Earth?
of the Earth.
9 billion.
Yeah.
It's somewhere
9
around
billion.
there.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of listeners.
Yeah.
This
from,
is a worldwide podcast.
yeah.
So,
You know, I think it'll
A lot of
increase now that we had
overseas.
Tom on again.
right.
Because I think we did the math, and every time we have Tom on, it increases kind of like the wolf population.
For
3
sure.
million
Doubles, triples.
triples every
Well,
5 minutes or whatever it is.
Scientifically, and there's a lot of third world countries that listen to us.
Tertiary countries.
You mean like Canada?
Pretty close. And on that note,
Thanks, Tom, for coming
Tom.
over and putting
Appreciate
up
it.
with us.
Yeah. Give the wolves an extra strip of bacon from me tonight.
Well, straight from MDA.
Yeah.
Cook 'em up
Right.
something good tonight.
make sure
We'll
you
use
let
your
them out.
donation for good
Yeah.
things.
Let him out of the kennel when
Yeah,
he gets
give him the
home.
check. now, Jared.
Give him those belly rubs.
Belly rubs. No, he's a good boy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm out. The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has been building our hunting and conservation legacy over the past 40 plus years through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation in Minnesota for Minnesota.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association and wolf.report proudly sponsor this podcast. However, please note that the opinions, topics, and guests featured may not necessarily align with the views, beliefs, goals, or mission of our sponsors.
Minbow, member driven, bow hunter focused. Join today at mnbowhunters.com.